like we had a hard time like generating any juice. Like I thought we played much harder defensively at GW than we did here tonight, and probably because we traveled twice. We've had trouble all year long coming back, and we only had 8 guys, so that's part of it. But part of it's just straight mental toughness, really. I mean, and you know, it's a little frustrating, but by the same token, you know, we're playing like our size is almost like a high school team. I mean, so like we can't throw the ball inside at all, which at times is, you know, they're switching every ball screen. We can't throw it inside on them. So it's like, we almost feel helpless sometimes. Like, and then defensively, we can't do anything at the rim because we're so small half the time. O'Neill's not quite ready yet to play huge minutes, so you know, it's like there's not much we could do about it.
He's gotten better.
He's gotten better at some things. You know, he doesn't know much. You know, that's probably the biggest thing. But in fairness, you know, it's going to take him some time. And when you don't grow up in basketball, like most of our kids grow up from 5 years old, you know, they got it in their hands. He really only played 4 years, so he's playing catch up. He's a great kid. He just got to learn. You know, like some of those should have been blocks, and he never got off his man. But that's just, it's a whole new ball game for him.
Did the brevity of that senior ceremony before the game kind of put in further perspective, you know, what you guys are dealing with from an experience perspective?
It's a good question. The brevity. It wasn't the best senior class I ever had. I mean, Noah's a great kid, but we had more managers than players. Kind of tells you how it goes, right? Then you look over on the sidelines, you got 45 guys over there in warm-up suits or whatever. I mean, whatever could go wrong this year has gone wrong. So, again, I'm going to say this is going to sound bad, but it doesn't matter if you win 6 or 12 or 9 or even 14. Like, if you're not championship quality, what the hell's the difference? So at least we're getting it all out of our system. You know, we get the injuries out of our system. No, I just feel like I've never had a smaller team than that. That's hard. It's not really how I like to play. Like, so that's probably the most. But it's a good question. It kind of sums it up, right?
Keith, do you feel like there's anything to take from this season so far that is a blessing maybe? And I think about Hema. He got a chance to play a little more. Things like that. Do you try to take that and run with it a little bit, or things like that?
So I've never really been involved in this. So I've talked to some coaches that have been through it, and they say, hey, you just got to celebrate the small wins. So, like, it's hard for me to celebrate the small wins when you don't win. But we know, at least we know exactly everything about our guys right now. Who can make plays when it matters, who, you know, lack a little bit of toughness, who can get better. You know, we know pretty much everything about every guy now. So from that perspective, it's really good, right? Because we know exactly what we're dealing with and what we have to do to get better. It's clear, like I'm thinking to myself, we're hanging around with most of the teams in the league, and like it's hard. Like it's hard to even fathom the situation that we're in. Like it's like you still think you can win, and like this is the first time we shot the ball at a reasonable rate, and tonight we didn't guard. You know, like we haven't shot over 40% about, I don't know, maybe 5 times all year. So it's a hard deal.
Coach, you talked about size when it comes to front court all season. This was an interesting game where the guy that effectively killed you was a 6'8" guard, and Jack Clark, who's on the perimeter. How has the size from the perimeter, especially when it comes to three-point defense, been sort of an Achilles heel to you guys? And is that an area where you might have to improve, even though you have sort of smaller guards that lead the way for you.
So I'm gonna compliment you again because me and Dave have talked about you on numerous occasions about the questions that you ask and the knowledge that you have about the game. And so you go back and you do your KenPom research on my teams and you check that 3-point defense. Okay, I want you to do that. That's your homework assignment. And I've always had good 3-point defensive teams. So it certainly isn't schematic, it's all personnel, right? So your point is, when you have small guards and you're closing out to, like you're sitting in on the ball screen and then you gotta close out to the shooter, if you're small, like those guys know they're getting it up, right? Like, so they're shooting with supreme confidence. Now we butchered a bunch of coverages too, don't get me wrong, like, and that's probably an area that we're really bad at is our general IQ, you know, just our retention of details that are continuous. But part of it is straight personnel. Like if you're small on in those guard spots and you're closing out to those shooters, then you're gonna shoot a little better rate. But part of it is brains. Like, so we're playing zone, which that tells you kind of where we're at, because I really don't like to play zone, but I had to, right? And we go end of the clock, and they only got 2 guys really shooting it, and we don't really shade them. You know, we let Nickelberry shoot it. We contest it, but we half-ass contest it, really, right? And that's what happens when you half-ass contest something, right? So a lot of bad defense is personnel-based. We got a lot to work on there, but part of it is we're small too, so we can't fix any mistakes. But we're inconsistent. That's the other part.
I would just ask a follow-up question. It's part of it have to do with when it comes to the help defense, that with Hema sort of being raw and sort of not knowing where to go, that the guards and sometimes Trey, when he's on the court with him, know that, so they sort of hedge a little too far to help him, which leaves the shooters open more so, or is there?
I don't think it's that so much. I think it's more, I think it's just consistency of effort and when you're tired and toughness. Like older teams don't make those mistakes. Like, and we spent a lot of time on that end, so that's probably the most disappointing thing to me. That's why I played Davis. Like he wasn't great tonight defensively either, but he's better than those guys. Just from a straight, like what I told the guys in the locker room was, the reason Davis is a pretty good player is he knows what he is. He knows he's a middle linebacker, he's not a wide receiver. And so when you don't know what you are, it's hard to be a good player. It'd be like when I played baseball, for instance, if I tried to hit home runs, I was gonna hit about 120. But if I walked and hit the ball to right field and just put it in play, I was gonna hit pretty good. So I knew what I was. And I think that's probably the hardest thing with the modern day athlete now is they all want to be something that they're not. And when you try to do something that you're not good at, you generally don't play very well. But why is that? That's the question. Like why do guys have such a hard time trying to figure it out?
Keith, as it relates to Primo, this is kind of the first time in a while he's been able to put a couple of good point performances back to back, and reminds me a little of Eric Williams a little bit, putting it on towards the end of the season and finding success. Do you feel that he's maybe understanding the word go or having better sense of urgency? What do you think is leading to it as you guys approach 8-10s?
You know, I don't think the number means so much. He's got to be more efficient. You know, but again, he's a freshman playing on a bad team with, you know, not a lot of options at times, and he has to do more than he really should. So sometimes he plays very inefficiently. But part of it is circumstances, and part of it is frustration, and part of it is just bad decision making. But overall, for a freshman, he's done a pretty good job, you know. But he's got some areas that he has to improve upon to really become a good player. You know, he's a typical freshman, and we're asking him to do too much, really. And he's doing too much, really. Now, tonight he was pretty good, but he should be a top of the line defender too, and he isn't right now. But part of it is our situation. You know, it's kind of like when you watch LeBron now. LeBron stinks defensively because he can't play both ends at a high level all the time.
Can you say that about both of the freshmen? Say a lot of that about both of them?
Yeah, I think they're both different. You know, Jackie, we're just teaching Jackie. And like I told Jackie after the game, I said, look, man, it's all your issues come down to me. Like, I have to teach you every little thing. And, you know, if you allow me to be hard on you, I can fix all your issues. But if you want me to poo-poo around, then I can't fix your issues. So you tell me how you want it. So, you know, he makes some home runs. He hits some home runs, and then he'll strike out. Like this game alone, you probably saw 5 strikeouts and 4 home runs, right? And you can't really win striking out. You know, you got to get a walk or a single, but he hits home runs or strikes out, right? It's pretty obvious. So that's all habits, and he's allowed me to be relatively hard on him. But the one thing he can do, if you score 30 points in a game as a freshman, or 27 or 27, then there's hope for you. But he has to get better passing the ball. Defensively, he makes a lot of mistakes. But it's not that he's not trying. I like Jackie attitudinally. Now, he gets frustrated in the game, but overall his attitude's good.
Do you feel that way about this team in general? Because, you know, you've said yourself you're not going to put up with bad attitudes. How do you feel about
it's hard when you lose 1,000 games in a row. Like, I'm sure there's some frustration. You know, I'm proud of the fact that they got down 19 again and came back, had a chance to win the game. But you can't get down 19. So, I mean, we got some guys to build around. We got some other guys that, you know, they have to check their competitive spirit. Like I told him in the locker room, I said, there's lots of times I get frustrated, but I'm a coach to the bitter end. I don't care. Like, you didn't see me sit down. You don't think sometimes I don't want to sit down? But like, that's a bad message. It's been a humbling year for me. But by the same token, I've had a lot of good years, so I'm not gonna let one bad year rain on my parade, really. I'm just gonna try to fix the problem. And we have to get better. Like we have to win March and April. Late March and April. We have to win in March and April. Simple as that. Like we have to fix our issues. We have personnel issues that we have to fix.
Coach, this year has been hard for you, and I'd say this all respect personally, with the loss of your father, and then you had the long-term bout with COVID heading towards the first couple weeks of A-10 play. How has this year tested your own resolve and your own fight as a head coach, especially during this losing streak? How has this affected you and sort of potentially made you even a better coach going forward?
I don't know if it's made me a better coach. It's probably aged me. I will tell you this, I'm a pretty humble person. Like, I've worked my behind off for these 5 years. Like, I've worked really hard to make this a good program. And the 2 years out of the gym, like, it affects you. Again, this building's worth it, but I wish I was coming in after the building was built. You know, 1 year would have been all right, but 2 years it affected our program. And I think, you know, you could even look at the women's team and argue the same thing, because he's never really lost, right? So, again, we're not gonna make any excuses, but, you know, it affected us. And the long-term gain of it is great. Like, this building's unbelievable. But the short term was really hard on me, and to answer your question, it's tested my resolve every single day. Like, But I kind of learned a lot when I went through my first snafu, that I just try to look myself in the mirror, and I ask the question, do I still work hard? Do I still have it? Do I still have that burning desire to be successful? Am I willing to get hit with 19 pitches? Do I still relate to the players? You know, you have to ask all those questions. Am I getting the right guys for me? But there's been days I've sat there and thought, oh my God, is it worth it? You know, and one of them was when I saw John Carroll, the former coach of Duquesne at Rhode Island. You know, he's battled some illness, and it makes you wonder whether it's worth it. You know what I mean? Because this job's like no other job. It's hard to explain. It's you know, it's all about the result. And it doesn't matter if you're working hard or you have to come up with the result. Nobody cares. So yeah, it's been, the sickness part really knocked me on my, I struggled. And I think it affected our team. You know, I wasn't right for 6 weeks. Like I could barely get through practice. And I feel like I'm a relatively tough guy. It's been a rough, I think part of it, you know, I went home every day for 5 weeks to see my dad, every day. Boom, 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 coming back, you know, that affected me as well. Like, so all I'm trying to do is just analyze where I'm at as a coach and as a person, and not let short-term failure affect my attitude or my bitterness level. So I think that's the one thing in life you have to really be careful of, is short-term emotions can really throw you off. I feel like I've done a better job in the last month of that than I did earlier. I've just tried to coach them every day and try to give them my best effort every single day, knowing that we're not very good, which that's even harder, right? Like I'm not gonna pull any punches. With what's happened to us, our circumstances, we're not very good. We have to play almost perfect to win. So yeah, I think it makes you better in the long run, and you know, it probably shakes up your mojo in the short run. You know, like I was talking with Steve before the game, and I said, man, I'm not as nervous as I usually am. And partly because, like, I'm used to playing for first place this time of year. You know what I mean? Like, so that's probably been the biggest adjustment for me. Like, I just don't want to lose the edge. You know what I mean? Like, you can lose your edge if you don't really check yourself.
Keep looking in the mirror, right?
Yeah, keep just trying to judge. Just everybody knows who works and who doesn't work, right? Everybody in this building knows who works and who doesn't work. And I don't care, like I care about success, but I never want to be one of those people that don't work. I grew up with a mother and she worked. And so like I can't live with myself if I don't put everything into it. And when I can't put everything into it, then I have to quit. I won't do that. But I still feel like I have great desire.
What are the personnel issues?
What's that?
What are the personnel issues that you said you have?
Everything. We're only good at a couple things. Come on, Tristan, I'll ask you, what are we good at?
Well, you're best at offense when it comes to isolation ball, and you have a solid, when healthy, a solid interior presence. I would say that when it comes to needs, you definitely need a certain starting center when it comes to being able to have rebounding edge, and a ball handler, veteran ball handler at that. Not, as you said before, Primo and Jackie's been doing too much. And arguably is sometimes playing out of position.
And the question is, will they continue to do that when you become a good team?
Mm-hmm.
So here's to answer your question. We're good when we double the post. We're really good at that. Like, especially with certain teams in there, like we don't really get hurt in there because we're good at doubling and we steal the ball out of the double team. We're good at that, right? We're good at not turning the ball over, which could be a little misleading because we don't pass the freaking ball, right? So what are we bad at? We're a very poor shooting team, right? We're a very poor assist to turnover team. We're erratic defensively, not good. So really, we're not good at anything other than those two things I just said in reality. But the funny thing about basketball is a guy here, a guy there could change the whole dynamic of the whole situation. So that's a tricky thing about this. And losing one guy when you have a good team can change the whole dynamic. So my first year as an assistant at Eastern Michigan, my second year, we had Grant Long, went to the NCAA tournament, had all 4 starters back other than Grant Long, who played 13 years in the NBA, or maybe more than that, 15 years. And we were just okay. One guy made that much difference. And I think that's, like, if you took a high-level pro and put it on this team, or you took Osuni off of St. Bonaventure, you'd see exactly what I'm talking about. So the good thing about basketball over football is that it only takes 1 or 2. So the other part that we're really bad at is we don't shoot the ball. We're a poor shooting team. So we have to improve our ball handling, our assist to turnover ratio. We have to get bigger inside, which we have some guys sitting there which can kind of fix that issue, but we'll still recruit some. And we have to move the ball better. And then our toughness level is not near good enough, in my opinion. So part of it might be because you play a lot of young kids, but part of it is you're just not tough enough. Good question.
Where was Ayers?
Appreciate, what's that?
Where's Ayers? Where was Leon?
Just for his own protection, I'd rather not talk about that.
Okay.
Like, I like Leon, and I just think it's better if we just don't talk about it. I know that's not great for the media, but it's in the best interest of the young man, and that's really all I care about. So it's. I knew somebody was going to ask me, Dave. Just because we're friends doesn't mean you can ask me that. I got to protect my guy. You know that. You should ask the question. I'm kidding you. So, but I have to protect him. So, good.